This is the Sixth Man Show, an Orlando Magic podcast, with your hosts, Luke Sylvia and Jonathan Osborne, covering all things Magic basketball. By fans, for fans. Go Magic. What's going on, Orlando Magic fans? You guys are back with the Sixth Man Show. Today is May 29th, 2023. Jonathan Osborne here. As always, I'm joined by my co-host, Luke Sylvia, who is back live from the arcade room. Happy Memorial Day, Luke. What's going on, man?
Shout out to Cox Communications for not coming through. With the Wi-Fi.
I forgot that was your internet service provider.
Oh, you just
and
thought
I was like, where is this going?
For sure.
I thought you were like, yo, shout out all the
just shout
pairs.
them out, bro. No, my power went out earlier, and then my internet went with it, and then power came back. Internet didn't. Was supposed to be about 8 p.m. repair, Jonathan, and then looked at the app again, and it said midnight. So I was like, well, I guess we're packing up, and we're going over to the old stomping grounds, my parents' house, my old room growing up, but it did not have Pac-Man or NBA Jam. Wish it did. But yeah, I guess first, Jonathan, we can start. You said Happy Memorial Day, but just our respect to those that have fought for our freedom and lost their life in action. That's what today is all about. I think it very much can get overlooked as just a day off from work, and that's very much not the case. So while you're barbecuing, doing whatever you guys do today, make sure you guys at least have just a reminder of that. It's the ultimate sacrifice. So now, Jonathan, the other thing I
concur. Just want to throw it in there real quick.
Okay, so in case anybody
I don't want Jonathan hates America or anything like that. Don't want it to come off like that. So I 100% agree.
So what I was going to say, and just segue into, teams with a 3-0 lead in the postseason are 150-0. That could all change tonight.
I am praying on their downfall like crazy amount. So I know you were asleep for the end of Game 6. This
True.
Is correct, right?
Very true.
Because Kevin and I are texting back and forth most of the second half, and you know my rule: if a team is up by more than 10 in the last 5 minutes, that team, like, you can mail it in, like 95, upwards of a good percent. They're winning that game. I was waiting for Boston to get to 11 in the last 5 minutes. With like 4:56, I think it was 98-88. And I was like, just get a stop and get a basket, and this game is over. And now, like, here comes Duncan Robinson, here comes Jimmy Butler, and like, here come the Heat, and they're coming all the way back. Now, with less than 10 seconds left, Jimmy has the ball, and you're like, okay, what is he about to do? Like, say what you would about Jimmy Butler, great competitor, all those kinds of things. He always seems to hit the big shot, right? But in my mind, I'm like, if you're gonna take a three, you give him that. If you lose by Jimmy Butler hitting a three in your face, like, he's not a fantastic shooter. Like, you live with that. Especially going to the corner off balance, like, you live with that. And then with 3 seconds left, Al Horford commits the foul. And I'm like, I cannot believe this is about to happen. At this point, the Celtics are only up 2. He makes all 3 free throws. They're going to have a 1-point lead with 3 seconds left. Now, a few minutes before, we had just seen Jimmy miss a free throw. And Jimmy played like garbage all night long until the last few minutes was complete garbage. Like, was a 0 for the Heat. Was doing other things, rebounding, assists, but offensively was atrocious. So I'm like, okay, we just saw him miss a free throw a few minutes ago. Maybe he does it again. Of course he doesn't. Knocks down all 3 free throws. And at this point, I'm sitting there like, what are the odds that this team goes down 3 games to 0, wins 2 games, and now they're going to miraculously win Game 6 after blowing it on like a buzzer beater? I'm like, there's no way that's going to happen. Like, life is just not that good. Like, good things don't happen to me. Good things happen to bad people. And I was like, great, the Heat are going to the freaking finals unless Jason Tatum does something miraculous.
Mm-hmm.
So they run this, sidelines out of bounds play, and obviously they deny Jason Tatum, the thing that you want them to do, and it goes to Marcus Smart. Now, in Marcus Smart's defense, the dude was fantastic all game 6 for the Celtics, knocking down big basket after big basket. And I'm like, okay, on a normal night, I would hate this, but I'm like, maybe this is going to go in. And then it doesn't. And then you're like, oh, great. And then Derek White tips it in, and you're like, all right, that was awesome. There's no way he got it off in time. And then he does. And obviously everybody is going crazy. Just one of the craziest playoff finishes that I've seen in a long time. Like, again, it was a Heat game, but the last time I remember watching something that crazy live was when the Heat were down, 5 points or whatever it was, with like 30 seconds left to the Spurs. LeBron hits a 3, obviously misses the next 3. Chris Bosh the rebound to Ray Allen in the corner, bang. Right. Everybody goes crazy. Like, basketball is the best sport in the world. I don't care what anybody says. You don't get drama like that in any other sport. And now Boston is going back home, and they have a real chance. Like, what did you say? I think you texted earlier. They're like 8-point favorites right now.
Yeah.
That'll get closer, I'm sure, like probably down to like 5 or 6 by tip-off. But they have like a real chance to win Game 7 and be the first team ever to come back from 3-0. And nothing, literally at this point in the season, nothing could be sweeter than the Heat having the biggest playoff choke of all time.
Yeah. Now, I want to also talk about real quick, because my favorite thing to do today was watch Heat fans who were streaming the game and also watching, thinking they won. The last thing they saw before they blacked out was Marcus Smart missing the 3, and they thought it was over. Now, talking about Marcus Smart, as you said, plays well the entirety of the game. Any other circumstance, you're not really okay with him taking that 3. But Marcus Smart owes Derek White just a huge steak dinner. Not just because he misses the 3, but because when the Celtics are up by 1, Marcus Smart goes to the free throw line with 16 seconds left and misses the front end of the pair of free throws. Makes the second one. The second one you don't have to worry about with most NBA players that are respectable shooters from the free throw line. It's that first one. If they can make the first one, you feel good about them making the second one. Misses the first one, and then he misses that 3 at the end of the game. So I don't care how well you play the entire game. There's got to be no worse feeling than down the stretch not making the play when you've been making plays all game. And I just think the Marcus Smart, I hope that he thanked Derek White endlessly for that tip in. Derek White never, ever, if he ever wanted to just venture in to a Boston pub, that man's never buying a drink himself ever again. People don't care how much money he has, especially if the Celtics are able to capitalize. I think they'll stay between 7 and 8 point favorites in this game going into it. And if they lose, we talked about it, I think, Jonathan, on the last pod. I can't remember if it was during recording or after, but there's got to be some really terrible feelings associated with being down 0-3, coming back, tying at 3-3, and then winning Game 7 losing Game 7 at home in a game that you were supposed to win by 7+ points. So for the sake of Celtics fans, and for the sake of those that can't stay on the Heat, I really hope Boston gets it done.
I guess one of the things that's a little bit confusing to me is some people are like, why are you rooting for Boston? Like, we hate Boston. Like, no, I hate the Heat more than anything. Like, any team that has ever existed. And some people ask me, like, why do you hate Jimmy Butler? Like, well, because he plays for the Heat. Why do you hate Kyle Lowry? Like, well, that goes long before he played for the Heat, but playing for the Heat just is like the hate cherry on top of the hate sundae for Kyle Lowry. There's some other guys on that team that like annoy me, like Tyler Hero or whatever, but like those are the two hate faces of the Heat for me. So them losing would just be incredible. The only thing that I was like, all right, the consolation for me was like, all right, if Aaron Gordon can win a title at the expense of Kyle Lowry, that would be awesome.
Hilarious.
And that still might happen. You
Yeah.
know, the Heat could very well win that game. And I think most people agree, especially after a series like this that has just been a dogfight. Whoever comes out of this has 2 days off, and then if you're Miami, you're flying to Denver to take on the Nuggets. And if you're the Celtics, like, you've got 2 days off at home, and then you've got Nikola Jokic coming into town. And I don't think anybody wants to deal with that. Most people are still going to favor the Nuggets in the finals, no matter who makes it, right?
Yeah. In the finals, speaking of, regardless of who's there, how many games do you think the Eastern Conference team will win against Denver?
The Celtics, I could see the Celtics losing in 6. The Heat, I think, would get swept. Maybe that's my hate talking, because I'm not even like thinking like logistically, like matchups and stuff like that. Jokic would completely destroy the Heat. Like he would be putting up historic finals numbers for a big man, I think. And then, just the difference makers that the Nuggets have. Jamal Murray, our good old buddy Aaron Gordon. We know, we've seen him, do a great job on Jimmy Butler in the past. So, I think the Heat would get waxed, especially after the series that they've been through and how deep they're going to have to dig to win that series.
Yeah, I'm going to go. I'm probably going 4-0. I'm going to sweep if it's Miami. I don't think that's your hatred talking. I genuinely don't. I don't think it matters how much grit and determination they have when it goes against Denver. If they go against Boston, I think Boston maybe gets a game. Denver is just tough.
I don't hate that.
I mean, what you saw against the Lakers was crazy. The Lakers, by all means, honestly, by all accounts, didn't play bad basketball. They just are, lost in 4 games. I don't think they play bad basketball at all. Boston has been playing bad basketball up until, like, even last night wasn't awesome, right? Like,
I think it was Chuck Chuck on TNT last night was talking about, like, this team has really high highs, but they have extremely low lows.
Yeah.
For a team that is this good and this talented, they should not look as bad as they look at times.
Did you see what they did to turn things around, or what they're contributing it to?
With the 3-point shooting?
No. So, like, the Celtics.
Oh, the Top Golf thing.
Yeah, that's hilarious. That Al Horford was like, everybody get in the car. We're going to Top Golf. We're not even watching film today. That's what they did when they were down 3-0. For those that didn't hear, I saw a screenshot from, I think it was Kevin O'Connor, and maybe it was a Ringer article. But yeah, that was apparently the story. They're down 3-0. They were kind of all off kilter, really lost all really sense of purpose, it seems like, when they were down 3-0. They're like, we've never done a team activity. We've gone to the movies. We've gone to dinner. We've not ever done like an actual physical activity. They go and they do Top Golf. Next thing you know, they rip off 3 straight. So if you guys are ever feeling down, go to Top Golf. This is not a sponsor, Reed, but it would be a heck of a segue. But yeah, man, just that's a crazy story too. If Al Horford happens to get to the finals, they win Game 7. As a Gator fan, Al Horford brought me a couple championships in college basketball. Wouldn't hate it for him to win the ring against Denver either.
I have a question. Why are we acting like Joe Mazzulla watching The Town 4 times a week is some kind of red flag? Have you seen The Town?
No.
Okay, that's a red flag in my opinion. The Town is a fantastic movie. Would I watch it 4 times a week? I don't know. But it's a fantastic movie.
You would.
Jeremy Renner, Ben Affleck, John Hamm, like, star-studded cast, great plot, action. It's got everything it's got romance. It's got humor. Fantastic movie. One of the best scenes of any movie. I'm sorry?
Did he say this in a post-game presser?
I don't remember what it was, but I've seen like 5 articles in the past couple of weeks come across my timeline about Joe Mazzulla watching The Town 4 times a week. And all of the memes every time they lose, like, oh, maybe you shouldn't be watching The Town. Maybe you should be watching film. One of the all-time great scenes in cinema history. Ben Affleck, these are tough dudes, right? These are street dudes. He goes to Jeremy Renner, and they're like childhood best friends, and he tells him, look, We got to do something. You can never ask me what it is. We never talk about it again, but we got to go and hurt some people. And Jeremy Renner says, whose car are we taking? Like, that is a dude that is on your side and has got your back. Just do me a favor. When we're done here tonight, watch The Town and get back to me, because I might watch The Town tonight. It's a fantastic movie. I don't know why it's getting this weird hate.
I'm not watching it tonight. But wait, did that interaction happen in real life or in the movie?
In the movie. It happened in the movie.
You were using actor names, so I just was,
Well, Ben Affleck's character goes to Jeremy Renner's character.
Okay.
Yeah. Just great movie. All right. I think that's enough talk about The Town, but I'm really looking forward to Memorial Day night, watching the Heat potentially blow it all against the. I can't believe I just said it like that. Just losing to the Celtics. All right, this episode, we're going to talk about what do our perfect off seasons look like for the Orlando Magic. So obviously, the first thing that is coming up is going to be the NBA draft, followed by free agency, and then so on and so forth into training camp and everything like that. But before we get to that, we have to give a very special shout out to the folks that help financially support the show and really help every episode happen. So first of all, you can find us at patreon.com/the6man show. We shout out our brand new patrons every episode that we have them. This week we have a new patron who actually is back in the Patreon. Our boy Ryan from Sanford joined at the all-star level. Great to see that guy back in the Discord. Has been a supporter for a super long time, so it's great to have him back. And then every episode, we shout out all of our Hall of Fame and Elite Tier patrons, which we'll go ahead and start now. We'll start with the Court Cousins, Drew Gooden, Armin, Carson Tulo, Normal, Magic Player History, Gabe Gaines, Wiffle, Michael Martin, Jamel Miller, Michael Salapong, The Distract, Donkey Punch Dave, Paolo and Franz's Warmth, Pierre A, Nostalgia and M&M's, Dylan Holden, Mr. Mikey, Eduardo Sanchez, Drum, Danimal, Dutto 15, Bobby Skinner, Goody 93, Teddy Sylvia, Eric Lopez, Fuchsia, Juan Geraldo, Bill Fulton, Edmund Lagone, Hosea Squealan, Destined for Greatness, Caleb Pete, Cannibalism, Time Mr. TV, Joe Rothfuss, ESPN Really Sucks, Gear 95 Shred, Junior Bruce, Half Freakin', Shahin 177, Bulby the Don, Himlo, Ban Himro, Arm Prof 221, Rapistrana, Magic Kid 714, Spank 2 Hard Soft, Taco Jesse, Johnny B, Fuego Nando, Victor Cologne, Phantom 72, Irish Magic Mike, Austin Lampy, Random Hustle, Austin Opal, Only Franz, Maria, Keith Wallace, and our boy Fritz. A big shout out to all of our patrons. Again, you can find us at patreon.com/the6man show.
Was Paolo and Franz's Warmth, was that on there last week?
It was.
Man, it just never gets old. I'm sure I reacted last week, but I just got to react again. That was great. I let out an
I'm pretty sure
laugh, but I was muted.
I'm pretty sure last week I said Paolo and Franz's Warmth, pause. I think the time before that I said Paolo and Franz's Warmth AO. And I almost reacted again, but I was like, you know what? I'm just going to power through it this time. I made that bet, and now I have to lie in it. Yeah, this is
right.
No one's fault but my own. I just kind of have to, take that one on the chin, so to speak. So,
wow.
Yeah. All right. So the NBA draft, and we didn't talk about this at the beginning of the show. I can't believe we didn't mention it. The NBA draft, which is coming up on June 22nd. It is a Thursday. The Orlando Magic are throwing a watch party at Amway that night. Free to get in. You just have to go to orlandomagic.com or in the Orlando Magic app and reserve your tickets. So be sure to do that. But talking about, Luke, what is going to be our perfect offseason, it really starts with the draft. That's the next time that the Magic can make any type of move. So let's start there. How do you want to do this? Do we want to go draft and then we'll go into free agency? Or do you just want to all right, this is what my perfect summer looks like and we'll go from there?
Let's just go a little one at a time action. How about you go first? Just tell me what from draft to free agency. You can include any type of options or whatever you want the Magic to do, but the big ones are going to be draft and free agency, I think.
All right, I've got to go back to my Twitter feed here because we posted a few days ago, just kind of what are some of the scenarios that I'm working through in my mind. So ideally in this draft, I would love to walk away with Cam Whitmore at 6. I just love his size, athleticism. I love his upside. I love the spirit in which he plays the game. I love his defensive versatility. I think he could be really valuable on that end. And then Grady Dick at 11. Another guy who I like the upside, and I like some of the other things that he does besides the shooting, some of the passing, the hustle plays, like the offensive rebounding, can defend a little bit. I think if you come away from the draft with Cam Whitmore and Grady Dick, 6 and 11, I think that's an absolute freaking home run. I think even if you end up having to trade up, I'm pulling up the draft order right now to remind myself of the teams that are in front of us. Like if I'm looking at Utah or I'm looking at Dallas, Gary Harris is a guy that we've talked about a lot, played really, really well for the Magic last year. But in terms of being a veteran and kind of fitting the timeline of this team, I don't want to say we're getting into like Evan Fournier or Terrence Ross territory where it's like every time we talk about this guy, we're talking about them being traded at the deadline. But in my opinion, Gary Harris, who's going to be going into, he's going to be an expiring after this year, I don't see him being here long term, especially if the draft goes the way that I want it to, the way that we just talked about. So you're going to have to move Gary Harris at some point, whether that's the trade deadline or potentially draft night. The Dallas Mavericks, again, the Magic are sitting at 11. The Dallas Mavericks are sitting there at 10. And it's no secret that the Dallas Mavericks are looking to get closer to contention and looking to improve their roster to improve basically overnight. Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving, if they're able to re-sign him, like you need good veteran talent on that team. And I could see Dallas saying, you know what, we're at 10. We'll move back if you're willing to give us 11 and Gary Harris. Now, depends on his value around the league. My guess is you could get more for Gary Harris than just moving up from 11 to 10. If you're looking to package your pick to move up, you could definitely do better than that just to move up a spot. But if they're bent on bringing in multiple wings or multiple guards, and you want to develop those guys in any kind of real way, Gary Harris is a roadblock in that example. Like if we're talking about Cam Whitmore and Grady Dick, to develop those guys, you're going to have to take away minutes from Gary Harris. I'm not even convinced that this is a great idea, but if you are dead set on drafting Grady Dick, I don't see him being there at 11. Now, going back to what I said on Twitter, this is kind of how I'm feeling at 6. These are the guys that I'm good with drafting. Cam Whitmore, Grady Dick, Jarris Walker, Asar Thompson, and Taylor Hendricks. Now, based off of what we do at 6, I think there's a few different ways that you can go at 11. If you don't draft a shooter at 6, if you go more of, let's say, Asar Thompson or Jarris Walker, who is a guy who can grow into a shooter but isn't really there quite yet, or if they go really crazy and they go like Anthony Black, which I'm really hoping they don't at 6. I think just the value is not there for Anthony Black at 6. If we don't take shooting, you have to take Grady Dick if he's there at 11, which I think is not likely. And if not, a guy that a lot of people in the Magic community have been talking about, someone that we talked to Keandre about, Jordan Hawkins out of UConn. The more film that I watch on this kid, like shooter. Jordan Hawkins would be a fantastic pick for the Magic at 6 if they haven't already improved the shooting on the team. And if they do take shooting at 6, again, I'm still good with Grady Dick if he's there. I'm still good with Jordan Hawkins being there. Derek Lively is a guy who is kind of rising up draft boards, the center out of Duke. And then a guy like Keontae George. If you're looking to take another swing on upside with a guy like Keontae George at 11, I wouldn't love it as much as some of those other picks, but I would understand that. But again, this pod is really for like our dream scenario. For me, it's Cam Whitmore at 6, Grady Dick at 11 at the draft.
Okay. I'm gonna kind of ride with what I've been saying, which is I want the Magic to make one first round pick this year. So at 6, whether that's Taylor Hendricks or Whitmore. I'm good with either of the, even obviously Oscar Thompson. I've seen a lot of him lately. A lot. Like way more than I felt like I was seeing prior to the lottery. I'm seeing a lot of him. So I wouldn't mind it just for the pure athleticism and raw talent that seems to be there. But my heart really wants shooters. I've made it no secret. We've talked about it. But I've got an interesting one of as I was kind of looking at top 3-point shooters in the league, things like that. How can we acquire outside of the draft more 3-point shooters? I think it'll be a difficult pitch, but I think you can overpay in free agency for a Seth Curry.
We're jumping to free agency already. What is happening?
Well, I said I wanted to do the draft, so we can do you did the draft. I'll do draft free agency, then you give your free agency.
All right.
Because you said your piece on the draft, and I think that like where you're coming from is where a lot of Magic fans are, which is I think there's a lot of ways you can go, and I don't know that I'll be particularly upset because you've already got your guys anyway on this team. You're wanting to just get pieces around it that can blossom or right away complement the pieces you've already got. That being said, free agency, Seth Curry would be awesome. On draft night, though, could you use... I don't know that the 11th pick even needs to get involved for this trade. I don't know what the market's like for this guy. But if I'm just talking shooters in a situation that seemingly has gone south, the Memphis Grizzlies is where I look. Jonathan, who is in Memphis?
If you say Desmond Bane, I'm going to end this podcast right now.
No, it's better than that. I promise.
Are you talking about Luke Kennard?
Oh, I'm talking about Luke Kennard. I don't
care. The dream is still alive, folks.
Listen. I don't know what it looks like, because the last time he was involved in a trade, it was a 3-team deal. Danny Green was involved in that trade, going to Houston or whatever it was, and 3 second-round picks went to LA. I don't know what it looks like. But if you can bring in Luke Kennard at the shooting guard position, and you talk about someone, Gary, maybe not fitting timeline or whatever in the long run, he's 28? Luke Kennard is 26. He, if you're looking at Luke Kennard in his contract, he's getting 14 a year right now. He's getting 14 a year. Next offseason, he has in the 24-25, so in 2 off seasons is when he has a club option, and in the summer of 25, he's an unrestricted free agent. I think if you made a deal for Luke Kennard, you could convince him by summer of 25 to come back on board. I think he sees enough progress with the team. There's not as many team scandals happening, and he'll be willing to stick around. That's all I'm saying. So I genuinely, if you can add one of Seth Curry, you can trade for a Luke Kennard. Obviously, those are pretty long shot, but the Magic have the assets to make kind of whatever happen with guys in that tier, in my opinion. So we'll see, as long as they're willing to be in Orlando. But I wonder, is the word around Orlando positive enough this time around, and in contrast to past summers where the team is together? This isn't a very common thing with team chemistry. Like, players might be talking about it, or they might hit up players on the Magic, ask them about it. Hey, is this for real? Who knows? But that's kind of a dream, but realistic offseason for me. We're not going to go out there and trade for a superstar, sign one, nor, in my opinion, like maybe this year, definitely more than last year. But realistically, I think that you could be looking at something like this if John and Jeff are prioritizing shooting. I just don't know if they will to that degree.
I am not in favor of like waiting until free agency to address shooting, because I feel like if you have to address it draft night, either by draft or by trade. I feel like once you get to free agency, like if you didn't do a good job adding shooting to this roster, like then you've got a gun to your head at free agency, and you're going to be at the mercy of whoever is out there, whether that be a Seth Curry. I wasn't even really thinking about guards, in terms of free agency. But let me go ahead and pull up the old spa track here in terms of free agent. You got Jordan Clarkson's going to be out there. Josh Hart. Everybody has the pipe dream of Austin Reeves. I just really don't see that happening. You've got Gary Trent Jr. that's going to be out there. Alex Burks could probably help you add some shooting. Max Strus, although he's probably going to stay in Miami. Seth Curry is there, obviously. And then after that, in my opinion, it dries up pretty quickly in terms of the shooting guard free agency market this summer. So I don't love that pool of talent there. If it's June 23rd and you haven't added a potentially someone that projects as like an elite shooter in the future, or somebody who's going to be at least league average and can grow into that over time. Like if you draft like Asar Thompson and Cason Wallace, I'm going to be pretty upset. Like Cason Wallace probably projects as a little bit better of a 3-point shooter than like Anthony Black, so to speak. But like the Magic need to come away with Taylor Hendricks, Grady Dick, or Jordan Hawkins in this draft for me. Like if it's at 6, if it's at 11, I don't love Hawkins at 11 or 6. I feel like that would be crazy. But like you have to address it that night, because when we get into free agency, I'm really going to be looking to add a veteran center behind Wendell Carter Jr. And I think that's where I'll take the conversation now. So Wendell Carter, as we know, you can kind of pencil him in to miss 20, 25 games a year potentially. Last year, your backup center was really Moritz Wagner, which nothing against Mo, but he is this kind of like combo big. He's not really a 4, he's not really a 5. He can exploit that in certain matchups, but most of the time you're missing something defensively there from your backup 5. So looking at the backup 5s that are or really just the 5s in general that are going to be on the market this year, a lot of people have talked about Brook Lopez. With the Bucks still in contention, I would be super surprised to see him going anywhere. Now, this is where my dream summer comes into play. Nikola Vucevic is a free agent. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. We've seen the rumors on Twitter. All right. It's not going to happen. But there is a chance. There is a very small, minute chance that Nikola Vucevic would sign to be a backup at this point in his career. Could still make a lot of money somewhere. Could still start for a lot of really good teams. But that is my absolute dream scenario, Nikola Vucevic. Now, in the spirit of trying to keep this realistic, I'll start to go down the list a little bit. Jakob Poeltl, I would be really surprised if the way that he played for Toronto after being traded last year, if they were to let him walk in any regard. I still think he's also a starting center in the league. I don't see him signing here for backup money. Christian Wood is going to be a big pass for me. Now, this is where it gets interesting. When we look at Mason Plumlee or Naz Reid, those would really be the guys that are like at the top of my list, or even a guy like maybe like a Thomas Bryant. He would probably be just below Mason Plumlee and Naz Reid. Then you're looking at like Dwight Powell. Andre Drummond does not get me excited whatsoever. But again, after those guys, that's really where the backup 5 market is going to drop off pretty quickly this summer. But a Mason Plumlee, Naz Reid, Thomas Bryant, I would love any of those guys to be our backup 5. And then it comes to the point of like taking care of your own. You would pick up Gary Harris's option for next year, which I believe the deadline for that, I have it in front of me here, is going to be June 30th. So going through some of the deadlines, the Magic have a club option or a team option on Admiral Schofield next year for $2 million. The deadline for that is 6/29. I believe I would assume the Magic are going to decline that. Same thing for Michael Carter-Williams. I'd be surprised if they picked up his option. Bull, his contract becomes guaranteed on June 30th. The Magic have until June 30th to extend Cole Anthony's 2024-2025 qualifying offer. Markelle Fultz, Gary Harris, their contracts for next year both become guaranteed on June 30th again. So Bull, I don't see them waiving him to save $2 million. But Cole Anthony and Markelle Fultz is really, to me, where the conversation should go next, and re-signing those guys. I think that should really be the Magic's priority, even before free agency, should be to get some kind of extension signed with Markelle Fultz and with Cole Anthony. I believe they can't sign those extensions until after the moratorium. They can start discussing those July 1st, just like everybody else. So, Luke, that's kind of what I want to get your feeling about. And then I guess we can talk about what we feel like is fair value for those guys.
Yeah, listen, with Markelle Fultz, if nothing happens, he's an unrestricted free agent next summer, which is terrifying. I don't want
to me
him.
That should be priority number one.
I don't want him to get any taste of what teams are willing to give him, shop in the market. In no world do you allow Markelle Fultz to even test the waters. It just shouldn't happen. You've got to get something done for him. I don't know what number I'm comfortable with. I really don't, but I'll do a lot of things, I think.
Do you want some help there?
Yeah, what are you willing? What's the number? Because right now, he's getting like 16.5.
Yeah, so he's right around 16.5, 17 million, somewhere in there. So where I'm comfortable at would be like a 4-year, $80 million extension. He would come in at an annual value of no, I'm sorry, I'm not even 4 years, 80. I'm willing to go 4 years, 100 million. Put him at $25 million. So with the next collective bargaining agreement, there's going to be cap smoothing over the next few years, meaning the cap can only jump 10% each year over the next few years. I forget if it's 4 years, 5 years, 6 years. I forget how many years. But if you remember in the last collective bargaining agreement that summer, what was it, 2016, where just all of a sudden everybody was getting crazy bags. Bismack Biyombo is getting $18 million a year. Evan Fournier is getting $18 million a year, 5 years with the 5th-year player option. Like everybody was getting crazy, crazy, crazy bags. So to stop that from happening again, they're going to be implementing this cap smoothing again, which the cap can only raise by 10% each year over the next several years. So with the cap going up, over the next few years, now is the time to get those deals done at what would now be fair value, which 3 to 4 years from now is really going to look like a great deal. So the reason that I say $25 million, let's talk about the guys that are sort of in that range. So let me start with Marcus Smart. Marcus Smart makes $19 million a year. He signed that contract last summer, so before this season started. Lonzo Ball is making $20 million a year. He signed that the summer of 21. Fred VanVleet is making $21 million. He signed that in the summer of 2020. Kyle Lowry signed a contract in the summer of 2021, making $28 million a year. Terry Rozier in 2022 signed a contract for $24 million a year. And then everyone knows last summer, Jalen Brunson, who might now be one of the most underpaid players in the NBA, signed a deal last year for $26 million a year. So when we look at Terry Rozier, Kyle Lowry, Fred VanVleet, Lonzo Ball, Marcus Smart, some of those guys that are in that area kind of similarly, I'm totally okay with paying Markelle Fultz $25 million a year.
Yeah. I don't have any issue with it. Like I said, I would do a lot of things to get Markelle Fultz back on this team. And you think about what he's going to be able to do this next year with the improvement we saw in the last bit of the year with things like his shooting from the perimeter. That's the biggest thing for me, for him, obviously. But if he is able to, channel that, then next year is only going to trend upwards the entire year. So, like I said, I don't want him to get a sniff of the market. So yeah, I'm on board. 25 million, pay the man. He deserves it. He's had a long road, and so I think that just what he's been able to do has been super impressive. And then next year, the Magic will be even better. He'll be even better as a part of it, and that'll be a big reason the Magic are better. I think that you've got to just pay him a reasonable amount, but maybe even a little more.
The best thing about this, though, is like I'm good with paying $25 million, average annual value. If it comes out to 4 years, $100 million, I'll be like, It's a lot of money, but I'm fine with it. I don't think he'll get that. Like John and Jeff have been shown to be like pretty shrewd negotiators, and the way that they've taken care of him, like with the injuries and everything like that, I have a gut feeling it comes closer to like 22 or 23 million. I don't have anything to go off of with that. That's just kind of my gut feeling and like looking at some of those other things. And I feel like 25 should be the starting number for Markel. And then it's up to John and Jeff to negotiate to get like closer to the range that we're talking about, like 22, $23 million. And I can't wait because I can see it now. When Woj tweets out that the Magic have agreed to a 4-year extension with Markel Fultz for $95 million or $100 million or whatever it is, people are going to be saying, wow, overpay, bust, blah, blah, blah. And then next season when we're in the playoffs and Markel Fultz is doing Markel Fultz things in the clutch in a playoff series, people are going to be like, oh, wow, Markel Fultz is actually nice. And the bust title should be all but gone next season, in my opinion, with Markel. Next guy, Cole Anthony. So this is a guy who I've kind of gone back and forth with, not on the player, but just like the decision that needs to be made this summer. Do you sign him to an extension now, or do you let him hit restricted free agency next year? I don't have what his qualifying offer would be. I don't have that in front of me right now. But to me, Cole Anthony, there you go, $7.7 million for the qualifying offer. Now, if he accepts the qualifying offer, he plays 1 year on that, and then he's an unrestricted free agent. Cole Anthony right now in the open market is worth definitely more than $7 million and is a kid that is super confident and should be, and definitely is the type of kid that I would bet is willing to bet on himself. If the Magic come to him and lowball him, he'll just sign the qualifying offer, play out the next couple of years here, and then he'll be an unrestricted free agent and he can do whatever he wants. At this point, the Magic are still in like asset management mode. And when you talk about upgrading the roster potentially, our good buddy Philip Rossman-Reich over at Locked On Magic talks about this all the time. If you don't listen to him, you should be. That when it comes time to trade for a superstar, the Magic are going to need money to be able to do so. So the more contracts that you have on hand and some of the bigger contracts that you have on hand will allow you to facilitate those types of moves without having to give up so much. Like even if we wanted to trade for a guy like, let's say, Luka Doncic, right? You might have the talent that it makes to make that deal happen, but you could end up giving up more than is even fair to make the money work. So that's thinking a few years in the future from now. But Cole Anthony had a fantastic year. The last 40 games was phenomenal. If I was a betting man, I would bet that we're going to see more of that Cole Anthony than we did, the first 2.5 seasons of his career, mostly because now he's in the perfect role as a sixth man and really embraced that to his credit. So again, just going through kind of point guard evaluations as we go through some of these other deals that have been signed in recent years, like looking at a guy like Devontae Graham signed almost a $12 million deal in 2021. Markel Fultz, 16 a year in 2021. Spencer Dinwiddie, 18 a year. He signed that in 2021. Kevin Porter Jr. Last year signed a 15, almost a $16 million deal. DeJounte Murray signed a $16 million deal in 2020. Mike Conley in 2021 signed a $22 million deal. So with Cole Anthony, I'm hoping they come somewhere in the range of like $16, $7 million a year. I think that would be best. Mm-hmm. But this is another guy who I wouldn't blame him if he feels like he's worth $20 million a year.
Yeah.
That being said, I don't think the Magic do $20 million a year.
Right. I mean, it all goes back to what we've seen, what the track record is for John and Jeff. They're not going to be doing more than necessary for these guys. I think that a big part of it, truthfully, is going to be the environment, the culture, the chemistry this team has. I think these guys are willing to take a little bit less to be a part, to stay on this team. And I think that it's really cool that we're at this point and we're at the crossroads of, where the Magic are a desirable franchise to be a part of. We're getting there. And nobody knows it like the guys that are already in the locker room. There's a reason that Gary Harris came back, right? We didn't think Gary Harris was going to come back. I didn't think Gary was going to come back. And he comes back and basically attributes it to just the culture that has been already quickly built by Jamal Mosley and his staff and this team. So I could see absolutely that John and Jeff are able to get these lower number deals out there, even when they could, and nobody would fault them for paying more. But I think that these guys are willing to make it work. I am not shocked. I would not be shocked if John and Jeff, and part of their pitch when they sit down and when they're talking with the agent and whatever, is here's our plan. Here's where you fit in. Essentially, yes or no, right? Like, here's what we need to pay you in order to have the shot at adding one more huge piece in a couple seasons, couple off seasons, whatever it might be, right? Like, these guys are, at the end of the day, they are trying to make a living, do their thing, but they're not sacrificing much by taking a $1 million, $2 million, deal. Like, these guys are good. At the end of the day, these numbers are really just a respect thing. Like, oh, you're not about to sign me for X amount of dollars. Like, that's disrespectful. It's a respect thing. These guys are well off, right? But if they already feel respected by this front office, nothing comes across as disrespectful to them. And it shouldn't, based on what we've heard and how this front office handles their players. So I'll be interested before you kind of went into, what players on the market have gotten the last few years. Number in my head for Cole, after talking about Markelle and hearing those numbers, number in my head for Cole for this next contract is 16. 16 and really up to 18, 19, 20, I'm comfortable with, I think. It is a little scary given what we saw versus what came of Cole Anthony. It is slightly scary for me. But, if it doesn't work out after, 4 years on that deal, then, you cut ties and you move on. But we're hopeful that Cole can be a key contributor and eventually be a 6-man of the year candidate. I think he can be. And we'll see where he falls. But yeah, I'd say 16 to 20 is really the highest I'd like to go. Like you had said, like you wouldn't be surprised if that's what we thought. But I really would like to stay in the 16 to 18 range with him.
This should probably go without saying, but I'm going to say it anyways. What happens in free agency, particularly with Cole, is going to tell us everything that we need to know about how the front office feels about Cole. Right? Like if they're not able to come to some type of agreement this summer, it means they're pretty far off. And if it ends up being like a $13, $14 million deal, like, okay, maybe they don't buy into the last 40 games of last season as much as maybe I do. I think they will because he was fantastic. I really don't see what the reason for that would be. Now, the thing that they are going to use to their advantage in negotiations, and especially with Markelle, is what I think is going to drive the price down a little bit, is the amount of games that these guys have played. So Markelle, since being traded to the Magic, sat out the rest of the 18-19 season, but in 19-20 played 72 games, but 2020, 2021, only 8 games before the ACL. Last season, only 18 games coming back from the ACL. And then this season, after missing, the first 22 games or whatever, 20-something games with the broken toe, he only played 60 games. Cole Anthony, now, the first year was, kind of shortened by COVID, only played 47 games. I think teams ended up playing, what was it? Probably close to that before the league really got shut down, and I can pull that up for sure in a second here. But then last season, 65 games, dealt with a ton of injuries last year. And then this season, only played 60 games, missed a lot with the, abdominal tear that he had. Going back to that 2020-2021 season. So, yeah, I'm trying to see here. Was that not the COVID? No, he got, he was the year after COVID. I completely forgot about that. He was in the COVID draft. So, yeah, even that season, only plays 47 games, missed a lot of games. I think there were different ankle injuries. Was it his rookie year? I don't remember off the top of my head right now, but yeah, last few seasons, Cole isn't playing more than 60 games. Markelle, most of his career hasn't played many games. Had the 72 game season in 19 and 20, and then 60 games this year. So I think the Magic have that working to their advantage, and I think we'll probably see that reflected in negotiations.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on like the backup fives? Like any of those names that I talked about, do those intrigue you?
I
Like
mean,
a Mason
obvious,
Plumlee, Nas Reed.
right? Yeah. No. Yes, I think that absolutely. Like the things that I missed last year, um, was definitely just a guy that's going to come in and kind of give you similar things that Wendell gives you, maybe minus the 3-point shot. Um, so yeah, I would say that I would definitely be interested in a Plumlee for sure. Obviously Jakob Pertl, but unfortunately,
Yeah, that ain't happening.
I think everybody is interested in a Jakob Pertl. So, yeah, no, I agree with the sentiment on it. I think that maybe you are bigger than me on getting a backup five, just because I don't know that this front office is one to put all the pieces together right now. I would hope that they will be going that direction, but I don't know that it all happens and it kind of all comes together where this offseason you add your shooters, you add your solid backup five. Like the Nas Reed and Plumlee would be a very, very solid backup five for this team and give us what we need. But I don't know. I'm prioritizing shooting. And if Mo Wagner is the guy we roll with, then that's fine. But we'll see if and when that gets taken care of.
There's been obviously a ton of talk about playoffs, and for some reason, there's people that think, oh, just because like you're drafting, two rookies means that you're. I mean, maybe you're not just like selling out for the playoffs. I don't think they should be selling out just to make the playoffs at this point. I don't think drafting two rookies and making the playoffs are mutually exclusive. I think if you draft guys that can make like contributions from day one, like a lot of the guys at the top of this freaking draft, like Cam Whitmore, Asar Thompson, Jarris Walker, Taylor Hendricks, Grady Dick. To me, those are all guys who will be contributing from day one. Like this isn't drafting. No offense to my guy, I love this guy very much. This isn't drafting Caleb Houston, who was by the way the youngest player in last year's draft. Like this isn't the same thing. Or if you're drafting, Asar Thompson and then you draft Jordan Hawkins. Like Jordan Hawkins played 2 years at UConn, was a national champion, and quite potentially the best movement shooter in this draft. Like if you draft two guys, I don't think that just means the Magic are throwing this year away. I understand why people don't want to draft two rookies. I totally get the concerns there, but me, like, for what this team still needs, I'm worth rolling the dice a little bit more on the upside than just saying, hey, like, we're mostly good. Let's just add a little bit of shooting. But they could take the 11th pick, package that with whatever, and go and get a big. If you don't do it in free agency, to me, that needs to be the move. If you're not going to use 11, if you're going to trade that, either you already drafted Jarris Walker or Taylor Hendricks, who you think is going to be a backup big, and now you're trading for shooting, or you drafted shooting and now you're trading for a backup big. Like to me, shooting is definitely the top priority, but I don't think people are paying enough attention to like the backup big being a priority for the Magic, because I love Mo Wagner. I just don't think that should be your backup big for 82 games. Like the 15 to 20 games that Wendell is probably going to miss, you need a guy that's going to be able to slide in and start there. And then in that instance, Mo Wagner is fine as like your third big, but
I got it. I got it. I got it. I got it. I
the
know
light
who it
bulb
is.
went off.
I know who it is. If it is not a Nas Reed or Plumlee, I got a guy that fits the
Nikola Vucevic, I agree.
Unbelievable. I have a guy that fits the timeline, and he's not incredible, but that's why he's a backup big. I don't mind because I for whatever reason I watched some of this guy this year. I don't know why, to be honest, but I did catch him a few times playing for Portland. I'm talking about Drew Eubanks.
I wouldn't hate that.
He
I don't think he's that much better than Mo Wagner, but I don't hate that.
So when I'm looking at just like a side by side comparison in terms of just statistics, Drew Eubanks last year had 1.3 blocks a game. Mo Wagner, like 0.2 for reference, by the way. So very much better at the rim. It would go to show as far as being a rim protector. So you have him in, and he's able to do that. He's coming off of basically a $2 million a year deal with Portland. He's an unrestricted free agent. He played 20 minutes a game. He had 6.5 points, 5.5 rebounds, 1.3 blocks, shot 64% from the field, low volume, high percentage. What you would want, a guy that is going to stay in his lane. In that regard, over an assist a game, I think that this could be a guy that I wouldn't mind. And available, 78 games out of the year he played.
I wouldn't hate it, but I wouldn't be like fired up about it.
Of course,
like,
but listen,
that's fine.
I'm not ever probably gonna. I've accepted I'm probably not going to be fired up about the backup big, regardless of my opinion.
If our backup big is Mason Plumlee or Naz Reid, I'll be a little bit fired up about that.
That's fine.
If it's Nikola Vucevic, I'll be very fired up about that.
We know, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And also to note, Drew Eubanks is 25, so able to grow. Like he, as far as it goes with him, he came into the league in 2018. He's played for the Spurs, so he played for a good organization. Then he goes to Portland. But yeah, so in 21-22, he played 71 games. In 22-23, he played 78.
I remember him giving Mo Bamba problems in Summer League in the Earthquake game.
Yeah.
Mo looked good in that game, too.
Yeah, but Drew Eubanks.
And then it got ended by an earthquake.
Bring him on. Yeah, so I think that's another guy that you could, like, as a realistic option. I think he's definitely there if John and Jeff are like, hey, we want to bring back somebody not named Mo Wagner to fill that second spot off the bench, essentially for center. I think Drew Eubanks could do that.
They need to keep Mo Wagner though. I want Mo on this team. Yeah, keep him as the third option and just awesome locker room guy and best friend and brother to our second best player. So
right.
You got to do that. So yeah, Luke, I think that's the dream summer, unless we're going to trade Admiral Schofield for Luka Doncic somehow, which isn't likely, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
But this kind of speaks to like some people might be thinking like, oh, why in your dream scenario aren't we trading for like Dame or like opening up cap space and signing some like big name free agent? Just be patient. I don't think it's the time for that.
No.
We talked about it with Kobe.
We'll figure it out.
You got your guys. We talked about it with Kobe that like success isn't linear. And we've talked about this for weeks now. And somehow every time we do, we get crap about it in the YouTube comments saying how like, oh, this team isn't going to like wait around and so on and so forth. It's like, bro, just breathe. First of all, you're that mad on YouTube at 8:00 in the morning. Like maybe you should be on Indeed and not YouTube because you're mad at your job.
Woo.
So
they're going to be fine.
Is that too hot of a take?
No, no, you're not wrong. It's going to hurt some feelings, and that's okay. But yeah, you're going to give it. Like, where else are you going to go? You've been a Magic fan this long. You're not leaving. Your leash is long with this front office. You're not leaving. You're not leaving. You're not.
How sad of an existence is this?
You're not leaving. Just like Jonathan and I and Kevin are not leaving. What did he say? We're not effing leaving. I'm not
freaking leaving.
Yeah, we're not. So, buckle up, get on board. You're not going to win a championship next year. Maybe in a few years. And we're getting one by 2030. But just stick around. Just take a deep breath. Stick around and watch us draft our future, more of our future, sign some of our future. That's going to be a fun year. Summer League is going to be a lot of fun, in my opinion, especially if you take your two guys in the first round. Summer League will be fun, regardless. But that will be a lot of fun. And then preseason, man, we're so close. We're so far. We're so far.
I don't know about you, Luke, but everyone in my personal life wants us to draft Grady Dick.
Of course they do.
And if I see one more person on Twitter just tweet, I want Dick, like, relax, guys.
Hey, listen.
At least have the dignity to use the first name.
Listen,
all right.
There's going to be, I think you and your little, like, what you laid out for the possibilities on draft night, you use Dick, not Grady. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, but I'm not out here just saying, I want blank.
Yeah, but I'm just saying.
And I was going by everybody's like last names.
The first name and last name.
I'm trying to normalize saying the kid's last name without it being the craziest thing that anyone's ever said.
Good luck.
Like, people shouldn't be like, oh my gosh, y'all heard what David Steele said? Oh my goodness. Like, that's the kid's last name.
Yeah, and he wears it proudly, as he should. But
listen,
man,
he seems like a fantastic kid. He seems hilarious, obviously very confident in himself, which he should be. At some point, even he's got to be tired of hearing the jokes.
I tried to look up something. I looked up on YouTube, like, Grady Dick talking about his last name. Nobody's asking about it, I don't think. I've not seen it.
Yeah, and we're not going to be the ones to break that trend.
Listen, I don't know. By fans,
at least not on the record.
They want what they want what they want. But yeah. Also, if you guys haven't seen Grady Dick's Twitter header, go on over there. I think it speaks to a little bit of just how I think he would fit in great on this team. Is all I'll say. I think he'd fit in great.
What did Cole say about when the Magic traded for RJ Hampton? Like, oh, this team's about to get a whole lot more freaky. If you draft Grady Dick, this team is going to be. I cannot wait to see
normalizing us normalizing Grady Dick's last name. This team's not going to normalize it for a long time.
Definitely
Cole Anthony,
not. No,
Jalen, all these dudes are going to be making jokes. You know it. They're going to try and play it cool at first, I'm sure, and then once they get a little bit closer, they're going to start talking about his last name. We're never going to hear about it, but it's going to happen, and it makes me smile.
What do you mean we're not going to hear about it? You'll absolutely see it on Cole's Instagram or Cole's Snapchat or whatever. Like, you absolutely will.
That's true.
Definitely. Listen, from, like, I would say January, February, people have been talking about wanting Grady Dick on the Magic. Is this the year that, like, the prospect that we've talked about all year long? Like, is this the year that he goes to the Magic finally?
I don't know. I'm not letting myself. It
doesn't seem like it ever is.
No, because it's the perfect fit, and he, dude, you know, the writing's on the wall. He's what everybody wants.
That's going to do it for this episode. For Luke Sylvia, this has been Jonathan Osborne. You all have been listening to The Sixth Man Show. We will catch you guys next time. See ya. Thanks for listening to The Sixth Man Show. Be sure to subscribe on iTunes and Spotify to get new episodes downloaded directly to your phone. If you enjoyed the show, please take a minute to give us a 5-star rating and a review. It helps out the show a lot. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Sixth Man Show. We'll catch you guys next time. Go Magic!